Art Break. We're excited to see you all here today. So I have a couple of announcements to start us off with. We have some great events coming up. So we have an artist talk with Hyungmi Shin. If you haven't yet seen her exhibition in the Joylight Gallery downstairs, I highly encourage you to check that out. So she is going to be here on April 25th, next Thursday, to talk about her work. This is from 6 to 7 p.m. And we have a flyer for that talk over on the table. So please feel free to grab one on your way out if you haven't already. Then after that, on the 30th, Monday evening at 6 p.m. on April 30th, we have a conversation between our Director of Curatorial Affairs, Rahima Barber, and Curator Jessica Silverman. And so they're going to be talking about challenges and opportunities in the arts market today. So we really anticipate this being a really interesting talk and really useful for, especially for artists, upcoming artists, early career artists, and really anywhere in your career if you're an artist. I think this will be a really useful conversation to hear and be a part of. We definitely are encouraging people to share their own perspectives as well. So those are my plugs. There are some flyers on the table. Please feel free to grab them on your way out. All right, so let's get into our art break for today. So the Kirk Newman Art School began in 1923 when the forerunner to the KIA, the Kalamazoo chapter of the Federation of the Arts, opened its first classes. Today, the school has grown to nearly 500 classes, taught by 60 to 80 faculty, and welcomes approximately 3,400 annual enrollments. Our scholarship program aims to make the school financially accessible. Students of all ages and ability levels have access to a range of art departments and art making opportunities, including ceramics, drawing, fiber, glass, jewelry, painting, photography, and digital media, printmaking, and sculpture. Each offers well-equipped studios and resources that rival many college and university art studios. So the art school's Post-Baccalaureate residency program launched in 2015 as a way to provide recent college graduates with an opportunity to build a body of work within a supportive artistic community and environment. The residency program is generally focused on studio time, professional development, and community engagement. Since 2015, the program has proudly supported nearly 50 emerging artists, and we are thrilled to add our 2024 residents to the growing list of artists who have participated in this program. And I am happy to introduce you to our two artists who will be speaking today. I'm going to introduce both of them up front and then just turn it over to the two of you. So first up, we have Libby Bergeon, who is our painting and drawing resident. Libby is a graduate of Western Michigan University, where she earned a BFA with an emphasis in painting. She's a figurative painter working in acrylic and oil paint, and her current body of work focuses on body image and identity. And next up, we will have Sydney Rotigel-Finegan, who is our printmaking resident. She graduated from Kalamazoo College with a BA in English and studio art. Her work explores the phenomena of human consumption, collection, reuse, and identification with material objects through lithograph and relief processes. So please join me in giving a big round of applause for these two.
Hello, and thank you all again for coming to today's art break. My name is Libby Bergeon, and I'm a painting and drawing resident here. So today I'm going to walk you through a little bit about me and my background. We'll go through some background and influences, some of my past work, my residency experience so far, my current work and exhibition work that's upcoming, and some future plans. So to start off, I grew up in a small town called Richmond, Michigan, all the way on the east side of the state, about 3.5-hour drive. I spent my entire life here until I moved to Kalamazoo about 5 years ago now. So my background has always come from a creative place. While I was growing up, I was heavily involved in dance, about 14 to 15 years total. I was a competitive dancer for most of my dance career, which meant rigorous practices, lots of judges' feedback and critiques about my performances, and hours upon hours upon hours of staring at myself in the mirror. And while dance gave me so many things of lifelong friendships, confidence to be able to stand up and be who I am, it also took from me in a little bit. These stereotypes that come with dance, they definitely can take a toll when you've been in this career for a long time. It definitely left an impact on my already kind of shaky adolescent body image and self-image. But while dance was something that I loved and I miss it every day and was my release from the everyday things, it also was a contributing factor. And while I'm working on these issues still today, they have found a new medium to express themselves through, but we'll touch on that a little bit further. So upon graduating high school, I moved to Kalamazoo, and this is where I would start my college career at Western Michigan University. My artistic form of expression would change from dance to fine arts. Here at college, I met amazing artists, professors, colleagues, friends, and I really blossomed into the person that I am today. It was a big shift moving from such a small town and always being with my parents to then I'm all on my own and it's time to figure out how to be an adult. I had found myself at home in the painting department, and sophomore year of college, I declared my studies towards a Bachelor's of Fine Arts with an emphasis in painting. And this month actually marks a year since I've graduated from Western. So now I'm going to walk you through some of the work that I made while I was at Western, and this mainly comes from my graduating showcase. But before we move on to that, I will touch on this piece that we're looking at here. This, while it doesn't fit in my showcase that I had while I graduated, this is still a very important piece for me. It was kind of like this awakening of I can work at a very large scale, and I really just felt proud of this piece. So I wanted to show that one as well. So this body of work, like I said, was my graduating showcase, and this was titled My Face Doesn't Look Like My Face. This body of work looks at the theme that I had mentioned earlier of body image and self-image struggles. As I grew and came to terms with womanhood in America, I became very angry at the inequalities and expectations that were placed upon women, and that's what this show looks at. I used myself as the delivery method to explore acceptance and normalization of a realistic body image, and I looked to question these standards that have been forcefully placed upon women. So once I had graduated college, I was kind of at a loss. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just kind of living day to day. And one of my professors had said to me, "Did you know that the KIA has a residency program? And I think you should look into it." So I had applied for it and was really hoping that I would make it. If I'm being honest, I put a lot of my eggs into that basket because I didn't have any solid plans. And thankfully, it all worked out. I've taken many classes here at the Kirk Newman Art School that range from ceramics to painting and needle felting to encaustics, and I'm going to share some of that with you today. So one of the first classes that I took was titled Nature-Inspired Oil Painting. This class allowed me to take a step back into oils, which I hadn't focused on in a while since most of my work has been in acrylic. This was a subject matter that I don't typically work with as well. Nature, while I'm surrounded by it, isn't something that I typically paint, but it was nice to take a step back, look at a new subject matter, and explore a medium that I haven't painted with in a while. I've also taken 2 ceramics courses here, Full Spectrum Color and Creative Cup Intensive. And something to note about me as an artist is that while my home lies in painting, I try to keep myself active in both 2-dimension and 3-dimension. I find that working in both helps my practice and just help me be a more well-rounded artist. And I find that my painterly aspects will shine through in whatever medium that I try out. Another class that I took was an encaustics class. I took 2 of those, the Open Studio and like an introductory course. I had dabbled a little bit with encaustics in college of just kind of an introduction and here's how it works. play around with it, but that's kind of where that ended. But I was thrilled to find out that the art school offered encaustics courses, so of course I signed up. The two images that we are looking at here are both ones that look at images that were printed on rice paper, and then wax and pigments were incorporated through that way. The image on the left, the mushrooms, is an illustration that I had done over the summer, black and white and charcoal, and using this medium allowed me to add pigment in a way that I now have like two different images, but with the same picture that I had started with. So it allowed me to explore and take my work to a different level. Here are more images from that same encaustics class. The two outer images, the two fruit images, are strictly just painting with wax, which was a new method for me. And while it's still painting in a way, it is completely different than anything that I've been used to. While it was a learning curve, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait to take another class and develop what I've been working on. So next, I will take us into a little bit more of my process and a little sneak peek into the residency showcase. So I want to talk to you today about this process called an acrylic skin. It's a fairly new process to me. I learned it right before I had graduated college, and it has become a very necessary part of my body of work. So I will give you a very Reader's Digest version summed up on how this process works. So the first image, all the way on the left, is of like a squeeze bottle that has a needlepoint tip that's very fine that allows for thin line work. So I fill that with whatever color that I need for this project. I typically use a thinner body paint, either two paints that are called fluids or high flows, which have like the consistency of a heavy cream, or if I take a regular like thicker body paint, I'll find ways to thin that down. The next, because my body of work looks at lots of patterns and clothing related things, I try to find images that have patterns in them. So I'll print that off just on a printer sheet of paper, and I'll take a clear like binder protector, sheet protector, and I'll slip that printer paper in, and I'll tape the edges so it doesn't wiggle around. From that point, I will add 2 layers of a clear gel to act as a base for the paint to sit on top of. Once that's dry, as you can see in the third image, I'll start tracing over that pattern until it is to what I need it to be for this project. And once that has dried, I will add 2 more layers of a clear gel just to kind of sandwich it in so that it's all sealed and ready to go. And then finally, once that has dried, I will take that acrylic skin that I have made and I'll peel it off of the little clear sheet. The best way that I can describe this is kind of like a sticker in a way of peeling it off of its sheet and sticking it onto my painting. The last image that you see on this slide is a skin that I'm working on currently. It is an image of lace that I have started to trace the pattern with. So I wanted to also show you some examples of this process used in my work. These are images from a few slides ago from my college graduating showcase, but these are some close-up images. I used the same lace pattern for both of these images, but just different colors of paint. I had incorporated these to kind of act like appliques or like a lace pattern for women's undergarments, which is typically pretty common. What I did here was once I had peeled off that sheet of acrylic skin, I then cut around the lace pattern so that it was more of like a natural follow through with what was happening with the pattern and also to fit specific shapes of what I needed. For example, in the image all the way on the right of the lower part of my body, I had cut out the acrylic skin to look kind of like underwear. So that then brings us into a little sneak peek of some residency work. These are 2 very zoomed in images of part of the series that I am titling Patterning Self. And before I move on to what this body of work is, I do want to touch a little bit on that same acrylic skin process. And you can see in the tomato painting in that bottom corner, there is that same gingham pattern from previous slides. So it is still incorporated into my process, just here's a little zoomed in portion of it. I had put it into the painting, and then this time experimenting with painting on top of the pattern instead of it just being the final layer. So to touch on more thematic things about my work, I am taking that same theme from my past body of work, looking at body image and self-image, but through a slightly different lens. I have started to look at and focus how food and clothing can play a role into our own image. Why do we eat the things that we eat? Why don't we eat the things that we eat? What connotations, both positive and negative, do we have towards these foods? And then also, why do we wear what we wear? Is it for comfort? Is it to follow trends? And how do all of these things combine together to speak about who we are, both internally and externally? Through this body of work, I am paying close attention to patterns, my own personal relationship with food and the clothes that I choose to wear, and how those things make me feel and how it is perceived from others. So I'm going to touch on some future plans. While I don't have anything solid and concrete right now, I do have some things that I want to focus on with my work. I'm obviously going to continue to make work and explore different mediums, and I want to try to experiment more with the acrylic skin process and see where I can take it. Push the acrylic skin process and acrylic paint to new mediums, to new ends that I haven't experimented with before, and see what I can do with it. I also plan to stay involved with the KIA through classes and events. So I want to thank you all again for coming out today. The opening reception of the residency showcase is May 3rd, 5 to 8 p.m. in the school commons, and our show will be on display May 3rd through June 2nd. Up on the screen, I do have a QR code for another way to stay involved with me and my work through an Instagram account that I have. And thank you all again. So I will open the floor to questions if anyone has any.
I was just noticing, first of all, thank you for your presentation. It's really lovely to see your work. The connection between the lace and the fabric and doing this layering. I'm just curious how you're sourcing some of the fabric you're working from. Like, are those personal articles of clothing? Are they just things you find and are inspired by?
Yeah, so the question was asking how I find where the inspiration comes for the fabric and patterns that I choose. A lot of it does come from the clothing that I wear. In the one image, let me back it up, of the ear, that is a flannel that I wear very frequently. So I do try to pull from the clothing that I wear because it is something that I'm often wearing and important to me. So I try to pull from there, and then I also seek just outside what are popular clothing patterns, trends, those sorts of things, and did I fall into them? Are they just things that I've noticed? And those sorts of things, and try to incorporate that into my work. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
I'm curious whether you have any thoughts on a conceptual way that the acrylic skins fit into the smooth body work, and or if you don't, how did you learn about that process?
Yes, so I learned about this process through a class that I took right before I graduated called Acrylic and Mixed Media Magic. We explored different ways to utilize acrylic paint through different additives and those sorts of things. We looked at molding paste and jelly plate printing and the acrylic skin process. So I learned it through that way. So it's still very fresh to me. And can you repeat the first part of your question too?
Do you have any thoughts about that process fitting in conceptually into this new body of work?
Mm-hmm. So it conceptually, I kind of like to think of it when I'm applying the acrylic skin on top of work, that it's almost like putting on clothes in a way, with the tomato piece, how it's on top of it. It's almost like coating and covering that tomato. So it almost feels like it's wearing something too. So I haven't, to be honest with you, put a ton of thought. It's just kind of happening and I enjoy the process. But as I'm working, that's some thoughts that I've had. It's almost like clothing in a way, to an addition to. But thank you. Yeah.
You mentioned that first piece that we saw, like tomatoes on the gingham, you could really see the scale with you standing right there, and that was a kind of light bulb moment for you and how big you could work. Your work for the upcoming showcase, is it similarly large?
Yes, so the question was talking about size with my work. And yes, I do typically work pretty large. The pieces for the upcoming show range from about 30 to 40 inches to 36 to 48, I believe. That size, so about a couple feet. I was very apprehensive to start working at such a large scale, but I was told to, we have this extra stretcher when I was in school. Why don't you give it a go? So it was one of my very first big paintings, and once I started working big, I couldn't go back. So a lot of my work is very large, yeah. Yes.
Where do you get your materials?
So I get my materials like paints, that sort of stuff, or just like inspiration material. Can you say that again?
Paints.
I order paints online through Dick Blick. I go to Michael's, just any kind of art supply store. Yes.
How has the residency process changed? How has the residency changed your artistic process? And how is it changing how you view yourself as a visual artist?
So the residency process has changed how I view myself as an artist quite a bit. It made me more aware of collaborative work and being involved with other artists, whereas prior I was so used to just working with myself. But I have enjoyed working with other artists and that collaborative process more than I'm used to. Yeah, I think it's just opened me to more collaborative things with other people that while I was in school, we did a little bit of just like friendly, like catching up with other people, but this is a little more involved than what I've been used to, but I've been thoroughly enjoying it. So thank you. All right, if no one has any other questions, I will wrap it up and pass it on over to my other resident. But thank you all again.
Hi. I'm Sydney Rotigel-Finegan. I'm one of the printmaking residents this residency cycle. And I want to thank you again for being here. And thank Libby for a wonderful presentation. And I guess introduce you to the very broad overarching premise of my presentation today, and that I have noticed as the through line through my art practice the past 8 months or so, and perhaps beyond that, a lifetime. Here's our studio wall. Let me find the laser pointer. Studio wall in the printmaking studio downstairs. That's something of mine, and that's something of mine, and I find it really inspiring to see my work hanging up there with that of the other amazing artists in our community at the KIA. Here's a sneaky picture my mom took of me in a class a month or so ago. Here's the plan for the presentation. Oops. The plan is for you to bear with me as I make technical mistakes. Me in a nutshell, then a little bit of an artistic timeline in my art practice, childhood, college, and beyond. A little window into my printmaking process, kind of a review of my time here in residency, a sneak peek into our upcoming exhibition, and look forward into my overall hopes and dreams. And here on this slide is a piece I painted in watercolor in 2021. It's called Self-Portrait as Stone. And to date, it is the visual representation of myself that rings truest to how I feel as a person living a human life. Here's me as a little baby artist, painting outside on burlap, the classic cotton ball snowman project, me being very messy. That has not stopped. I still always have ink on my face exiting the studio. There's a little etch-a-sketch something going on down there. And my very first exhibition of sorts at 4-H. And big shout out to my family, my mom's, my grandma, for being such nurturing presences in my life and in my art. Here's me, approximately 8 years old, at the KIA, full circle moment, at one of the area school art shows. That is my piece right there, kind of a love fairy, and here I am now, so that's pretty cool. There's me sporting some block printed apparel and holding up some of my very first woodcut prints, with a little list of things I like: rock hunting, trash hunting, sorting discarded items. I love living in Kalamazoo. I love walking around the neighborhood. I love hearing little snippets of people's conversations. I love finding graffiti and cats. I like getting dressed. I like taking notes and feeling like a student. Junk journaling, and once again, my family, friends, and my fiance, Leo. Eyes open everywhere. This is kind of a philosophy I've adopted when it comes to living a life with art at the core. So I try to be alert as I'm just walking around my life, my environment. Here's an image in particular that translates into art that you'll see later in the presentation. But my father-in-law also, well, future father-in-law, also collects beach trash. And so we share that as a hobby and inspiration. Also just like moments of human connection, environmental stuff, just playing around with things I can stack on beaches. So yeah, then I create a visual archive to draw upon when I am wondering what to make. This is some early college work. I had a big self-portrait with things coming out of my mouth, eyes, ears phase. I think that is kind of a rite of passage for a lot of artists. And I'm seeing a lot of intersections between my own work in paint and themes that Libby addressed earlier. I was feeling a lot of discomfort in my own body, kind of alarm at finding myself kind of newly aware as a consciousness within a physical form that can be observed by others and by myself. And so this was a series that was aiming at kind of provoking discomfort in the viewer to mirror my own. It got increasingly fragmented. I was ripping out my work, and you can see there's kind of a tendency to work with acrylic in a very sheer and drippy fluid way that I think was in relation with the fleshiness of my subject matter. This one here is very large. That's like life-size, my body, fragmented, repeated, and then there's some words in pencil on there. It's just, I'm not my body, over and over. So once again, I think it speaks to the realities of living in a body perceived as female, that Libby was touching on as well. And I was in a very dysmorphic state about it at the time. Here we go. It kind of starts evolving, breaking down, getting more abstracted, incorporating more and more natural elements. And you see here, the printmaking urge was just starting to come out in 2019. The urge to repeat, to press things to paper again and again and again and set them alongside each other in an edition. Kind of some foreshadowing. This is still one of my favorites. It hangs in my grandma's house. And starting to see both concern for the body and concern for the environment, and some ideas of conservation coming out here as well. Then I get more abstract. Looking at rocks in this series as a point of departure. I was taking from my agate collection and from like those little plastic organizers that I've been adding to since I was, I don't know, 4. We got more fossils. You can tell I like rocks. But then I unlike printmaking. In the final term of my undergraduate degree at Kalamazoo College, printmaking studio finally opened up in person after the pandemic. This is a year ago. So I still consider myself very much a baby printmaker. But it was immediately something I connected with, and that I saw a lot of potential in. And here are those first couple woodcut prints again, what marked as a flame make in blue and orange. And I really like them as companions to each other. And once again, kind of abstracting natural imagery. Variety, exploration, repetition. I got the opportunity to do some intaglio etching and use of aquatint in that final class senior year. Once again, more thinking about consumption. What are we collectively putting out into the world, and who do we share that world with? And this is my mom's denim shirt that she passed down to me. I didn't include it in this presentation, but in high school I did a pretty large scale drawing in graphite of that shirt, and I revisited it in the form of printmaking. Here's an ode to vine in the form of a printmaking quilt, investigating the fairy houses that my neighbors would leave out in their yards, the shoe that rested below a shoe tree and was beginning to grow moss and little fribbly plants. And I just liked that people leave out evidence of their just existence and their thought and creativity, just for the sake of it. Here's one called the Tree of Power. This is a tree that my fiance and I encountered on a camping trip, and I was just gobsmacked by the kind of waves of power that I perceived rolling off of it. I remember we were really silent around it, and I almost felt haunted by it afterwards, afraid that I didn't show enough reverence, so I personified it later. Here's a look into the printing process of that piece. And looking back on this makes me really grateful that I can now exist in a proper printmaking studio space, because this is in a friend's dining room and it was a little chaotic. But there's the first layer after I've carved the plate, rolling it up, and there's the first layer printed. And here you can see what I reduced that block down to in order to print the second layer, carved away everything that I wanted to remain brown, and then had to line that all up. There's the addition I ended up with. Here's some photos from my current printmaking process, in cafes with friends, at home, jottings and coffee and carving, which is my favorite part of the process, because I find it so meditative. And here we get into my experience in residency. I took Intro to Lithography with Madsen, and I think that really reawakened my passion for archiving material objects, found objects, and I found myself really enjoying placing trash objects next to collected stones and fossils. So There's me with a litho stone, playing around with like a little plastic baby, plastic astronaut man. It's kind of like a life cycle concept. And then like a destroyed G.I. Joe. There's a sneak peek at a shadow box that may or may not end up in our final exhibition in a more complete form. But I also found myself inspired to take the flat kind of archive of these objects and take it three-dimensional from there and play with more found objects in the frame. I took intro to ceramic sculpture with Courtney Nelson, which was awesome. I've always wanted to get more into ceramics, but did not find the opportunity to do so in college. So this has been really amazing. And I found it a really playful departure from work that I felt, I don't know, maybe, forget that. Anyway, I got playful with it. I was making little animals, and I was also thinking about different ways to house the collections that I've been speaking about thus far. I took beginner's wheel with Evil's Claw this past winter. Here's me feeling very messy, working on the wheel. My mom took a class at the same time. I convinced her to come over to the KIA because she was formerly working in Battle Creek. And I promised her we could have studio time together. So she helped me a lot. I was truly like a beginner in every sense of the word. Had never touched a wheel before. And so a lot of this class was just making vessels, gaining muscle memory, and scrapping most of them. But this mug is very special. My mom made the form, and I glazed it, and it is my favorite thing to drink out of now. I took screen printing with Patrick Kinney, which is really exciting because I have always wanted to print more on textile. Here's what's in my bag, kind of thrown together, self-portrait in a way. I intend to print this on tote bags and reveal the contents of my bag to anybody who crosses my path. This is kind of a deconstructed interpretation of a photo of frozen Lake Michigan. And these kind of spirit figures came out of it. I would really like to print this on a scroll in the future. This is a t-shirt design on paper because the t-shirt is in the wash. And it's just a reminder that trees are really wonderful. And there's me and Alyssa, another printmaking resident in the studio, looking at the print rack. And here's some stuff I've been working on outside of class, just playing around. And this isn't all of it because there's top secret stuff too. But playing with found graffiti, once again contrasting man-made material with natural imagery connected with, oftentimes connected with familial history at a kind of family compound on Lake Huron. And the body is still present, me feeling where I'm at in my body. Here I've enlarged the feet and my hand here because that's where I felt my essence was concentrated at the time. I'm also feeling kind of lost and floaty. And most recently, I've been drawing upon my own morning pages. If you're familiar with Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, those like 3 pages in the morning where you just dump out words on a page is a practice that helped me at a very confusing time. And now that I'm almost a year past those initial entries, I'm revisiting them. You're supposed to leave them for a while, but now they're becoming a really rich source for visual content inspiration. And so this is my most recent self-portrait. It's called Me and the Moth. And it came out of revisiting this encounter with the moth while writing my morning pages. And I'll just read a little bit of it here. Let's see. Little butter yellow moth, trust I won't smash it. I am so sad, butter yellow moth. Can we trade places for a day at the least? What would you do with my consciousness? Wait, what would you do with my human body? Would you get my human consciousness and memories too? Otherwise, you'd probably just sit a few feet from where you are now, just as a giant fleshy thing. If a bird came along, you'd try to fly and find you can't. So, I don't know. I'm just kind of going with that because it feels good. So, as a sneak peek into how I'm envisioning my final showcase in this exhibition coming up in just a couple weeks here, I'm pulling out more fragments from those pages. And in the practice slides, there were a couple kind of sneak peek images sprinkled in of the process, paired with these excerpts, but just things that ring true to kind of the most vulnerable place in myself. Planning out on the margins of like steps to carve for reduction printing as well. And that brings us to my hopes and dreams. I want to make zines. I'm working on a neighborhood catalog right now. I want to do enough art to feel like I can teach art confidently. I've been working in a school recently as a substitute teacher and a paraprofessional. And every time I sub for an art class, I walk away thinking that I could do that and feel fulfilled and like I'm putting energy into something incredibly worthwhile in nurturing community creativity, especially in the young ones. So I want to proceed to teach art. Handbound poetry collection is on here, children's books, big dream, and then keep stretching, keep writing, keep making. And to tell you to follow me on Instagram at Periwinkle Paintings. And to tell myself to post more on there because it's been a while. And then I will leave you with our show poster for that opening reception and exhibition coming up May 3rd, 5 to 8 p.m. for the opening reception. And then it will be on display until June 2nd. So we would love to see you there. My fellow residents' work is just endlessly inspiring. We've got textile resident, sculpture resident, painting and drawing, and printmaking. And I will open it up to questions from there.
It's a lovely body of work. I appreciate you sharing it with us. Thank you. I don't have a question, but I very much have enjoyed seeing the process that you've done. It looks great. Good luck with your future.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. Yeah.
It seems like writing and making have a strong connection for you right now. And if you said this, I'm sorry, but are you going to be displaying some of the writing along with the prints?
Yes. I would like to, and if I can get a crash course in setting type before the show, I would like to do it in that way. Otherwise, I can see the prints accompanied by handwritten little slips, potentially collaged. But yeah, I want them to live side by side. All right. Thank you all again for attending and nourishing the community we have here. It's been lovely, and have a wonderful day.
All right, thank you so much, Libby and Sydney. Thank you to all of our residents. Thank you to the wonderful teachers and administrators in the Kirk Newman Art School who make all of this happen. We value you so much. One final announcement, our art break for next week with Del Darnell is being postponed. So we won't have an art break next week, but Del will be with us in October, date TBD. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you all for being here today.